Job done. And welcome everyone, 2 o'clock UK time. We've got a packed agenda. There is two presentations, actually one update, one presentation, and obviously discussion, and no doubt vaccination will be the topic. Mark, over to you.
Thanks, Kuba. I've got a big laugh inside me when everybody comes online, because it reminds me of the Eurovision Song Contest, which I watched last week in Germany, and England did so amazing, or the UK did so amazingly well with 0 points yet again. Anyway, so yes, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining. Just looking at the agenda, where we are on vaccines, and I think it's really important to understand. We have gone out to the press and said that InterManager will support all of the other organizations' attempts, but will also independently seek to go it alone to shake the trees and rattle the cages and do whatever we can to obtain vaccines. We asked our own Norman Schmiedel, who's incredibly entrepreneurial, to approach Johnson & Johnson through their distribution network, and he was able to secure this 1 million doses for $22 million. Now, whilst we had that secured, of course, we didn't have a government who was willing to step up and allow us to act as a conduit through which to acquire those, because you have to go through a government. That order has now been lost or reallocated. Kuba has been phoning around through the help of a lot of you through various governmental agencies, I think, including Singapore, Cyprus, in Poland as well, and others, which I'm sure Kuba will expand upon. And we have a number of government bodies who said they will help us once we now resecure an order. So it's insofar as we had the cart before the horse initially, now we have the very clear as to what the procedure needs to be. We now need to go back out to the suppliers and say, look, we have governmental support and we have the will and the means. Can you now give us an allocation? And once you can, we will then go out to the membership and wider to secure the funding, and that will have to be pretty quick, because these orders, these allocations, they go out of the door pretty quickly and they can't be held for obvious reasons. So I think, look, as I said in the last meeting, all we can do is show that we are trying. Whether we succeed or not, we shouldn't beat ourselves up about it. Nobody else has succeeded going down the various other routes. I think we are rattling cages and shaking trees. It is getting into the press. Governments are saying, yes, they will help, when perhaps they wouldn't have or couldn't have in the past. We're seeing jurisdictions around the world now offering to vaccinate seafarers, both of their own nationalities and on board their flagged vessels, and, as in the US, seemingly any seafarers who are wanting a vaccination. So things are changing, and you can't really gauge who's the cause of this. And nor do we actually care, frankly. As long as our seafarers get vaccinated, nobody wants to take credit, and we're all doing as much as we possibly can. So that's where we are. Kuba has secured, through his efforts, a number of governments to say, yes, we will help, and we've tried to commit them in writing, and they've given us that as far as governments ever do. Now we need to go back out again and try and secure the suppliers. It will be helped by the fact that we have governmental support, and then final piece of the jigsaw, and holding the other two pieces in place, get the money in. But I think getting the money in will be the relatively easy bit, because if people are true to their word and they really want to protect their seafarers, then they'll have to put their money to where their mouth is and come forward and pay. So that's where we are, and I think some of the governments have even offered to contribute and pay if and when we get all the other pieces in place. So it is a learning exercise for all of us. I think we are, as I said, shaking the trees and rattling the cages. I think it is working, and we'll now go back to the drawing board and try and secure supplies. Now, what else is there as far as our general principles is concerned? And I think looking at some of the emails during the last couple of weeks to Kuba, which I'm copied in, some of the members have been saying, where are we? Kuba and I have had further meetings with Alpha Marine, who are the consultancy agency who we're going through to help us get started. We've had the first document delivered yesterday, Kuba. I think I've just gone through it. It all makes a lot of good sense. And what the proposal is that there is a draft general principles, ethics and business values, which is produced by Alpha Marine, which looks at each of the principles and grades the company's performance on a bronze, silver and gold basis. Now, before we all get, as soon as I saw that, I got sort of hot under the collar thinking, well, hang on a minute, what if Colombia's not gold on all of these? It doesn't matter where you fall on that, as long as you show that you're working in the right direction. This is not pass or fail or you're doing better than others. It's where are you currently? We all commit to these principles. That's the most important thing. And where are you currently on the ladder of commitment as seen by Alpha Marine, and what further help or assistance do you need to get further up that ladder? The important thing is that you're on the ladder, and there's no comparison between gold and bronze. It's just a question of where you're going on your journey. Alpha Marine will also provide an auditing facility so that companies can be audited as to how they fit into the general principles, ethics and business values, and also then provide gap analysis and training and guidance for those companies who might be falling short in certain aspects. And we'll all fall short in certain aspects, that's for sure. So as soon as we have this, we will circulate it for wider consideration. I think the first thing will be to circulate it to the executive committee, and then get a dedicated committee to thrash this out and finalize it as quickly as possible. Ideally by summer, end of summer, we will have this general principle, ethics and business values. But certainly really good discussions that we've had with Kuba and with Alpha Marine, and I think on the back of that, we've got our, and my last comment is we've got a new member joining us, which is Tome. So very, very big welcome to Tome. I don't know whether they're on this call or they will be participating in future calls, and a number of other members too joining. Please, I think as soon as we get this standard in place, we will be inundated with membership requests, because it will be necessary to be showing willingness to be participating in this, and whether you're a bronze or whether you're silver or gold doesn't matter. The fact is you commit to abide by these principles and business values and ethics, and that's the most important thing. So people, you're either in or you're out, and if you're out, you've got to ask yourself why you're out. And we had an interesting debate on one of the conferences I was on recently, where one of the managers who's not a member suggested, why do we need yet another principles? And I challenge that companies, why not? Why wouldn't you? If this makes sense, it's simple, it's easy to apply and put you on the right path. Why the hell wouldn't you not? And I said the challenge is, okay, I will pay for your membership, but you be a member, come and join us. And of course that's the test, isn't it? Why wouldn't you, when this it has to be a good thing. So we're well on the way. We're well on the way to that, and welcome to Tome and those other members who have joined us. I think that's all I've got, Kuba, isn't it? I think that's me done.
Lovely. Yes, thank you. Indeed. So the update from me, not to repeat what Mark was saying, only to maybe reinforce. It was a very interesting. It must have been after one of our meetings when Mark made the statement and announced that we do have a vaccination. Then actually I was called by several governments saying, hey, we are reaching out to you. We would love to cooperate and work with you. Some were faster than the others. Some we had to go out and check. The good news is then definitely they are now far more prepared to work with us. And to reinforce, we are expecting members to report positively what you are seeing from the ground as well. Obviously, there will be a message. I'm sorry, I keep forgetting. Then I've only sent a message to executive committee. I've got a clearance now to go to all members. I will be sending message with the update on vaccination countries and governments. And you will obviously see that US is definitely leading, with numbers reaching from 7,000 to 10,000 seafarers already vaccinated, which is excellent. Then we've got Holland and Belgium joining. And today I learned also Qatar is on a way. to vaccinate international crowd, international seafarers from companies based in there. So that's all very good. As Mark is saying, you know, the avalanche of hopefully good positive moves started, and we definitely need to continue with that. Now, there are some other countries which I'm not allowed at the moment to disclose. Hopefully next week we will know what would be the procedure for us, companies from outside of that country, to vaccinate seafarers. But as I'm saying, US led on this example, and other countries now are getting to the stage when they vaccinated their own population and have some surplus of vaccines. So they are happy to actually distribute that to others. So there will be a work with agents to make sure that we can actually access that. Once I am on agency and agents here, I had several reports from our members that some agents in US are actually making a fortune on delivering seafarers from the port, from the vessel to the vaccination center, which is vaccinating people for free, and then taking another fortune away from us to deliver people back. I am working and I need more examples, and obviously I'll sanitize those examples, so don't worry. It's not going to happen that I will be actually telling anybody then it was you who reported, but I need examples so I can actually talk to them firmly. Otherwise, it is hearsay. So please do report. Any feedback from you is extremely important for us.
Kuba, can I just say, even when we secured that 1 million dose, or had the discussions, and the first question was, you know, what commission do you want to take on it? And this is business. I mean, I know the outrage, and it is outrageous, but you know, there's as we all appreciate, there's a horrible commercial world out there, and I think vaccines will be traded, you know, so I think we're right to call it out, and we can't be allowed. But I think pretty much everyone who is distributing these vaccines in any way or form, shape or form, is taking something. I think that's the reality.
Yeah, and in this case, actually, okay, the agencies are not distributing, but delivering people for the distribution centers. That's where they are charging a lot of money. And they split it into different categories and so on and so forth. But not to dwell too much on that one. Please give me your feedback. I definitely need to do that. And as an association, we are able to fight your corner. Now I lost my flow. Where was I? Okay, government. So there will be a message from me telling you which governments and where we are working. It is a bit of a chicken and egg situation, as Mark said, because governments would like to see orders and where do we get from, and the deliveries or the manufacturers would like to know where we are going with that. But working on it, working very, very hard on it. Now, we do have a situation, and I have been sending messages to all of you regarding crew changes outside of US, but using US as a transit. Unfortunately, it looks like we are losing this battle. US is very firm. Transit is only within US. So if you are flying your seafarer to Houston via New York, that is okay. But if you are flying your seafarer to New York onwards to Bahamas, Bermuda, or anywhere else, that is not transit as far as they are concerned. Therefore, you cannot do it. Good news is there are some direct flights to the destinations where your ships are, but please be aware that you cannot use US as a transit, unfortunately, unless you know otherwise, and you can report that to me. But I am afraid we had several members screaming and shouting, how come? Although reading the American rules and regulations, you might be very well understanding then everything is fine, and you should be. I see a hand up, and I don't know who that is. So whoever put the hand up, yes, please, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Kuba. This is Chris Podolsky. I'm with Global Marine Travel, which is part of V-Ships, as you know. Yep. We've experienced quite a bit of this. I'm also the general manager for North America, so this is a challenge that's been sort of acutely on our doorstep. Let me get back to you with some of the workarounds that we've found for this. We've found some ways to manage it by ensuring that we don't have everything on one airline ticket. That seems to be the trigger when the airlines see that the guys on one ticket transiting, then they start to question separate tickets, and also with overnights if possible, breaking the trip seems to do the trick. But let me get some specifics out to you so I don't misspeak in this big of a forum.
Perfect, Tris. No, please do, so I can send it and forward to our members. Heathrow seems to be the worst. Sorry, Heathrow seems to be the worst, where the agents are not allowing people on board because of this. Okay, and Chris, if you could take your hand down, because I can see yellow hand and I don't know whether it is you or somebody else. Is anybody else?
There is another hand up. It's not mine.
Okay, so whoever is, I can't see who that is. Please go ahead.
Yes, Cuba, good afternoon and good morning to everyone. This is Rajesh Dadwal from Campbell Shipping in Bahamas. Talking about the US, Cuba, we have a situation which I think many of the other InterManager crew manning companies are also having the same issue. This is related to Indians in India. The US consulates are, working very, they are not fully open because of what's going on in India, lockdown all over the place. We are struggling to get US visa appointments, and whenever someone does go, you get an appointment for September, October, and while you have to do the crew changes. Now, I think while this is okay, it's the only issue will come in when the ship does call US eventually. The US have a tendency to, put a fine or, have guards there. And I think that's something that if we as an InterManager could lobby to the US Customs and Border Protection that, look, this is not an issue making on us. I have told our manning company to, keep a record of that whenever we go and apply the visa timeline, and so that we can show to the authority that, yes, we did try. But I think if other InterManager members have the similar situation, maybe we can speak from one voice, so that none of us get, fined or undue cost for the guards there.
Okay, Rajesh, I take it as a homework. I'll report back when we see each other, or maybe earlier, because we do have a very good contacts in US actually. So I'll try to see what we can do and how can this be. Maybe work around that, or as you say, to have the good documentation, then you've done everything you could have. Okay, lovely. Thanks for that. Appreciate that. Okay, no further hands up. COVID travel situation, yes, we were talking about now US. India, I have no further reports as far as I'm concerned. I think that's all from me as far as I'm concerned. I'm just checking my notes. Yes. I'm delighted actually. Then, if you remember a few weeks ago, we had Diaz with us who was telling us about his project in Georgia. And he was, informing us what's going on and the way they wanted to go forward. And Diaz got in touch with me last week saying, Cuba, success. We're actually getting somewhere, something. You can see the smiling face of this gentleman from Georgia now. Diaz, all yours. Go ahead and tell us, what have you managed?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Happy to see you. I just want to make some updates on my presentation I did earlier on the topic of rating from Georgia. At the present time, we are collaborating with the Batumi State Maritime Academy to adapt the educational program to each customer individually. Yeah, and taking into account the company's SMS codes. And now we're training the ratings for two of our German customers. Of course, includes some additional subjects such as an intensive English courses and mathematics as well. So for their duties and their subordination on board are very clear to the seafarers. And the one more news from our Georgian government. It's actually very good news. That's our government started funding the cadets program. So now, if you take cadets from Georgia, the government will pay you. It's roughly $2,500 for each cadet. Yeah, and so previously it wasn't, but now we are working on the the total promotion of Georgian seafarers on the international market, and this is a good opportunity, to do it. So, and anyway, for any detailed information, if somebody is interested in Georgian seafarers, especially cadetship program, so I will be very happy to tell you about that, and maybe for future collaboration. Yeah, thank you, Kuba, very much for this opportunity.
Thanks, Diaz. No, and thank you for your hard work. That's brilliant news. And that reminds me, then I will use this opportunity. We have been contacted by an Indonesian lady cadet who cannot find any placement on board of the ship. So, guys, I need a place for the cadet Indonesian lady. She needs 12 months at sea to complete. If there is any ship around, you are trading in Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, and you would have a deck cadet space, then please get in touch. Obviously, I'm reaching out to Vista as well, and any other contacts I have, especially contacts in that area. There is no point traveling this lady to the Irish ferries, for example. But if we could, that would be really, really good. That's a very tough call for us. And cadets, not everybody has Diaz who looks after them that well. So it comes to InterManager at times for this. Thank you, Diaz. Thank you very much. Now, our presenter for this week is Martrust and is Erikos, who will be talking to us about the matching services. Number of our members are already using these services, and therefore he is no stranger to you. Erikos, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear, Captain Kuba. Thank you very much.
You can take over. So show us your screen and go ahead. Take us on your journey, please.
Very good. I'll do so. Thank you. Hello, my name is Erikos Andreakos, and I'm the Chief Commercial Officer for Martrust. I'm not sure if you know Martrust. I mean, obviously, Domenico Carlucci is representing us every time in the meetings. Martrust primarily provides financial solutions to the maritime industry. The element that I'm going to be presenting to you today is basically an additional service that we have been developing. Because we've seen that there is quite an appetite by ship managers, we thought why not present it during this forum and get your thoughts and feedback on it also. So without pondering too much on it, because we've got restricted time, let me share my screen. There we go. Okay.
Yeah, we can see you.
Perfect. So Martrust has always been looking at creating new solutions to solve old problems. In this specific case, what we've been looking at is how does a process work between a purchase order and an invoice. It's a very basic process. It's probably one of the most basic processes of all. But when you consider the volume of invoices that come in related to procurement requests by the ship managers, it is actually a process that, even though it is very simple, becomes a very convoluted process. So the main pain points that the ship managers that we've been interviewing and trialing this service with, that they came back to us, is they mentioned that the procurement team, because on average it has between 20 and 30 invoices per vessel, they don't have sufficient time to look at the effective variances for each invoice. And what they tend to do, and you can probably confirm this, is that business rules are put in place to make sense of the volume. Business rules such as if there's a variance which is over $200, look at it. Below $200, don't look at it. If it is 3% deviation from the purchase order, consider it. If not, it's like auto approve it or send it for settlement and payment. So this causes a lot of, it simplifies the process, but the question here is, why simplify the process in that way if we can potentially simplify the process in another way? It also results in poor quality for the second level of approver. So the next person that is supposed to approve something that is of a variance over $200 over 3%, often the notification that he receives is of poor quality, and he will approve something just because of the volume of the elements that he needs to approve. So he doesn't have a deep understanding of the variance, and due to that, he just approves it or requests some queries, which then causes some additional delay on other activities, or simply teams get overwhelmed by the size of the task. So what we have done is we've created, so we did a trial with a couple of customers, and we've created a solution. It's, I would say it's between 60 and 70% automated, where the system actually takes the purchase order and it takes the invoice. It can also take the delivery confirmation from the captain, which is critical for some customers. For other customers, because they have not managed to solve the first element, it is not so critical. But what it does then, it looks at comparing the line item elements between the purchase order and the invoice. And it looks at price, it looks at quantity, it matches descriptions. So there is a deviation percent, an algorithm in the backend, fuzzy logic, that says these descriptions look about the same. For instance, an air conditioning unit with a BPU of 24,000, which was part of the purchase order, and the invoice shows a air conditioning unit with a BPU of 18,000, right? And everything is matched because the price is the same. It will highlight it, and then our users will be able to advise a procurement like, listen, the strength of the air conditioning unit is substantially different, 25% different. Shouldn't there be a price difference? And then procurement knows what they have to focus on. It looks also at line item discounts, total or total invoice discount. And of course, you probably know that every supplier will add freight, packaging, handling charges, and other things, which were not part of the initial purchase order. So it will identify these and classifies them as separate, which then over time becomes basically a big data set, which allows reporting to check on behaviors of vendors, allowing you then to identify, well, for this vendor, there is always a $50 additional handling charge. Why don't we just include that in the purchase order element? So then we don't waste everybody's time within the organization, and so on and so on. So we look at these elements. The other elements that we do is it's a modular service. So it focuses also on communicating with vendors and effectively then trying to relieve some of the pressure on the procurement team, who have a lot of more urgent things to do than effectively matching. Now, a lot of us, we are, of course, some of us are ex-finance, ex-controllers, ex-audit, ex-managers. Some of us are directors. It's like the control framework for all of us is really important. And traditionally, what happens in most of the ship management organizations is that the procurement person who has issued the procurement order is also the person that is verifying the purchase order against the invoice. That by itself, if you think about it, becomes a question mark in terms of auditability and controls. So that is the other benefit that we identify is that if you actually start considering a third party for this activity, you actually enhance your controls because you segregate the duties, and that is super important for the control frameworks for most customers. The other element is, because now you're using a third party, you can basically put a lot of pressure on them because you will want to receive better notification. Why is there a deviation? Well, there is a deviation because X, Y, and Z. So this notification that is captured within our system can also then be exported into the customer system for further approval. If the customer wants to actually approve it within our system, there is a web tool format that allows them to actually do so. And then when it is approved, it gets exported to their system and as an approved purchase order, an invoice to be settled at a later date. The benefits that we've seen so far is that there's an increase in procurement team productivity, primarily because the procurement team receives now managed data. right? So the data that they receive is not random data. It is managed data in a specific format, which allows them to action specific elements. As we said earlier, the service focuses on two elements. It has two modules. One element where we just conduct the matching, one element where we actually support the, let's say, the post-matching activity. And this post-matching activity can be set up with the respective SLAs. So for instance, it's like contact the vendor 3 times, it's like request credit notes, and so on and so on. And because everything is done through systems, of course, we have respective KPIs for the teams that allow us then to also report and depict the performance. The other component, which is quite important, is credit notes. The volume of credit notes once you start having this service is, of course, starting to become a bit higher, because you've got elements that in the past you may have not been looking at. It's like in so much detail. So there needs to be a credit note reporting. There needs to be an element around managing the credit notes, stipulating the outstanding components. All of us, we have financial reporting responsibilities. So a credit note is a positive impact on the P&L. So you will want to know what is there, what has been received, what is outstanding, what can I recognize this quarter or this month, depending if you're publicly traded or not listed entity. So this is another important element for us that we're focusing on. And then, of course, there's, as we said earlier, reporting and behavior analytics, right? It's like we've got the vendor. The vendor may one time add $50 on handling charges, another time $60 on bank charges, a third time $30 on freight. It's like all these elements, right, should be part of the procurement team, wealth of knowledge in terms of how a vendor is behaving, so that then the procurement team, when they speak with the vendor in terms of renewing contracts, price negotiations, or other elements, they have this set of data and they can push back on things or agree on things, right? It's not always that it needs to be pushed back. If there is a valid reason and the vendor is effectively always incurring these costs, that's fair enough, but why not just standardize the process then, so that this random noise dissipates and that we can focus on other elements. So that is a critical component of the service also. And then, of course, there's the concept of continuous improvement, right? As we said earlier, it's like by matching purchase orders and invoices by line item, it's like we generate vendor awareness. We also generate purchaser training. So with one customer in the Netherlands, when we started doing this, there were a lot of different deviations. We had a governance call every week with the head of the procurement department, and he was looking at the data and he was like, well, you know what? It's like this new person that we hired, it's obvious that he's not been properly trained. It's like there are a couple of elements that stand out here. So then he went back, trained his this new recruit, and who understood then what he needed to do, and in the future that element was not present anymore in the deviations and in the issues that were brought forward. So this also is this element is quite critical because if you've got a junior person that is doing things wrong, of course it will increase the amount of time somebody is going to be spending on the backside to actually try to fix it. Or, as we said earlier, you end up putting business rules and you allow inefficiencies to reside within the organization. So this matching service, the reason why we created it, right, it's like, of course, we as Matras, we do payments. And our focus always has been that to simplify and streamline payments, you need to fix the front-end issues. And the front-end issues usually were compliance and bank formatting elements. But when we started digging a bit more and started asking customers like how they were doing processes around some of these elements that were generating a payment, we identified that the purchase order to invoice was one of their biggest pain points because of the sheer volume of it and the requirement on the purchasing team to be able to offer a good service. And that is why we looked at it, because we believe strongly in assisting the customers in identifying ways to streamline the processes so that payments actually get conducted in a more controlled, auditable, and compliant environment. So that is why we jumped onto this bandwagon and spent, I would say, quite a few months trialing it and fine-tuning it with two customers. One of them is a publicly traded entity, and the other one is a non-publicly traded entity. It's a private entity, but both of them they had different business models. One did ship management internally, and it's an owner, and the other one was a proper third-party ship manager, so that we could actually capture the requirements from both sets of customers. So that is the presentation. So Matras always focuses on next generation of maritime payments. And the floor is back to you, Captain Kuba, and to the respective members of InterManager, if you've got any questions that I could answer.
Okay, thank you. If you could hand over also your screen. Perfect, very good, so I can see people. I'm watching for the yellow hands here. Could you tell us, I don't see anybody asking any questions, how long have you been using this system now? How mature is the system?
It's I would say in terms of maturity, we're probably 90% there. So what we're trialing now are services. So to see also if we can put services through our system, because services usually from a purchase order perspective have a single line, but when an engineer comes on board to actually conduct a service on a machine or on the electrical components or on other elements, when the invoice comes, it may have 20 line items, while the purchase order was a single line item. So we're trying to see how to streamline and automate that as much as possible. Anything else which is not service related, it's very mature.
Very good. Okay, thank you. No, I don't have any further questions, and I don't see any hands up, actually. So, Erikos, thank you. Thank you very much.
Also.
Here we go. Hold on. Rajesh has a question. Rajesh. But you are muted.
Thank you very much, Erikos. Just a couple of questions. I'm sure you will share the further details through InterManager platform. How easy is your platform to plug in to the existing ERP systems used by the ship management companies? And if there is another, whether the system can evolve into also undertaking vendor reconciliation as well. So not just on the procurement side, but doing on the accounting aspect as well.
Thank you very much for both questions, Rajesh. So in terms of integration, that is why we started the trial with two separate customers. One of them actually uses Certica as a procurement tool, and we are able to integrate and receive a lot of the information. So that is fine. And the other customer actually has a mosaic of processes because they've been growing through acquisitions. So they've been actually providing us different types of file formats. The system uses both integration abilities, but also a OCR process. So we have different ways of capturing the information. So the answer is we look at what the customer need, and then we further either develop if it is required, but already the OCR and the API integration are working quite well.
All right, thank you.
And in terms of your vendor management reconciliation, we've been having a lot of customers asking us about this, especially to avoid phishing events. So they've been asking us, can you do vendor management to mitigate phishing? Can you do vendor management to mitigate compliance issues? So that has been now the next level of requirements that are coming out. And Makura as a group, we have been doing compliance as a service for quite a bit of time now. So the answer is we would be able to provide that activity also.
Thank you. Thank you, Erikos.
Thank you.
Thank you, Erikos. And no further questions then from the floor. Thank you, Erikos. Thank you very, very much.
Likewise.
Moving on, while we were listening to Erikos, I received a message from one of our members saying Hong Kong confirms they will vaccinate foreign seafarers working cruise lines calling Hong Kong. Pressure is on government to allow vaccination on other commercial vessels too. Hong Kong has excess vaccinations as local population is not stepping up to that to get inoculated. And I think we hear that more and more, that governments ordered, they've got, now they need to do something with it. So maybe, obviously, I will work tirelessly on this one, but also thinking globally, acting locally, through your associations, through your networks, we can actually approach countries and just hint them that there is such a population like seafarers, and we are very keen and happy to accept vaccinations as well. Okay, that's all from me as far as I'm concerned. Mark, we are well ahead of the time today. I'm opening the floor. Any questions? Anything which you had a time to digest, you heard this morning, well, earlier on this meeting? And if not, then I think we are ready to wrap up. Okay, Petros, please.
Yeah, hi, Kuba. I sent also in the chat a question if there is any, so far, any experience of crews refusing to get the Johnson vaccine due to the side effects and mainly thrombosis.
No, and interestingly enough, not even Johnson & Johnson, there were probably, the general population in UK or Germany were concerned with Pfizer and the others. But as far as seafarers are concerned, no, we didn't have any reports so far. What was interesting, ICS issued a leaflet recently, well, propaganda leaflet, basically, addressing seafarers to be inoculated and so on and so forth. And we had a report this morning that one ship which was without this leaflet didn't really want to be vaccinated in the US. They were delivered the leaflet, they came back in 3 weeks' time, and miraculously, everybody wanted to be vaccinated. So anecdotally, everybody was saying, well, the leaflet seems to be working. People are. Whether it is leaflet or maybe there was some sort of a work on these people, or maybe they understood, the result is that this particular ship has been vaccinated almost 99%. I think there was only one person who still refused to be vaccinated, and not refused because nobody is forcing anybody. It is giving opportunity for the individuals, human beings, to be vaccinated, and the results are fairly good. Also, that reminds me, I will be coming back to you. Well, I can ask now actually a question and probe the audience. What do you think? There is a push in the industry to check, to gauge how many seafarers have been already vaccinated. Would you be happy to provide this kind of information if I went out to you and asked percentage-wise, how many percentage-wise of your seafarers have been already vaccinated? Would you be happy to provide that kind of information, which will I then sanitize completely and share with others? Any takers? Anybody who is happy to comment on mine?
Yeah, from Campbell Shipping, we have no problems giving purely the number of seafarers and the percentage of vaccination. So this is the information that we are already started to capture. So we are happy to share. Obviously, we would have concern if we had to reveal the names and so on, but giving the pure numbers is no problem.
No, okay. Anybody again?
Kuba, what purpose does that show apart from just a random number? Because it doesn't show acceptance rate, and it doesn't show. It may just be that certain vessels have been in jurisdictions at a particular time. I just question what value that figure has as a data.
The same question came up today, and the answer or consensus of the group was then maybe we could start seeing trends that, for example, I don't know, Polish seafarers are having more trouble than Russian being vaccinated. And then there will be somebody from within Poland saying, but we came out with a workaround. We know how to deal with it. And so on and so forth.
So we would refine it a little bit more to nationality based or age based or just so that there's some value in that data.
Indeed, so we can actually draw conclusions and help each other and seeing trends, whether we are trending well or we are not trending at all, maybe. It's like last month there was a hike. We thought then all on-signers will be, all of a sudden we will start seeing the spike of on-signers proving positive. But no, as you can see in June, there was no reports. April was the only month when we saw something, and May seemed to be okay. We don't have a problem by the look of it, but at least we were around this and we could see whether we should be doing something or not. I've got a question from Sunil. Sunil Kapoor, please. You're muted.
I fully agree on this, that we should be able to share the data. And I remember when our ships were coming to US, not many people were willing to get vaccinated. And all of a sudden, when the vaccination program started, not ours, but many of the companies started taking the advantage to get the vaccination. And same thing now, the news is coming about the Philippines, the cruise ships in Cyprus. So this news, if it spreads, and also we need to spread the positivity with the seamen and all the seafarers and other community that we should get vaccinated as soon as possible. And the industry should do, and they should also know that industry is doing a lot of stuff to get the crew vaccinated. I think this data at the end of the day will provide certain directions, which type of people, where and how they are getting vaccinated.
Okay, Sunil, thank you. Dirk.
It's all nice, fine and dandy, but how do we ensure that the data we collect are really usable or are real data or what have you? I have serious doubts. I like the idea, but how we get proper data, I'm not sure.
And I don't think I've got an answer to that. Obviously, trust, and I'm just thinking, why would people be not providing trusted data? Especially then we are not going to create a league table. It's not going to show that one company is better than the other. So I don't think there is any value for anybody to show themselves better than they are, because that the buck stops at me. That would be the only person who knows where it is. I know.
Kuba, I think we need to go out with a very clear objective here before we. I mean, all of our times is precious, and what are the parameters of the data? So if we collect data from 20 ships from 5 different nationalities, what can we draw from that? Because you're only going to have a snapshot of the entire industry. Can we say that Filipinos are less inclined, young Filipinos are less inclined to be vaccinated? That'd be worth knowing, wouldn't it? Because we have to then perhaps focus our education on the younger Filipinos, or Eastern Europeans are more from the 500 ships that we've got data from. But we have to be very clear about what data we want, from whom and how, and what's the. So I think rather than just calling for data, we should perhaps put our thinking caps on, and I'm in Dirk's camp here, that collecting data, rubbish in, rubbish out. It's classic. So let's refine it.
I agree. Absolutely agree with that. Very good. Rajesh?
Yes, Cuba, I support the idea of collecting the data. We as a responsible intermanager people, we have the obligation to supply the right data. So I don't buy into Dirk saying that it will be a garbage in. We are not here to send out garbage. So you will get correct data. That's no problem. My another objective, which I feel that this is a very good idea, is one of the dimensions that we need to do is to, apart from collecting how many percentage have you got, it's also good to know where you have got, because I think intermanagers should also use the platform to thank those government industry bodies who are doing what we have been pleading, support for the seafarers for all this while. So we should also take the opportunity to identify where vaccination is being facilitated, so that we can go out and thank them, express our gratitude from the industry as well. To be honest, in the US, even before we ask, we are told, hey, you're coming to our country, do you want vaccination? So I think we need to acknowledge that efforts from our platform, so that it becomes a lesson and a guiding light for the others to follow. So it's something which I felt was very important to do that. And as I said, because it's just purely a numbers game, because as our own governance model, we are asked by our board to give us a percentage of vaccination. Even if we start with one, but it's important for us in our journey. And I think it's very important to acknowledge all the efforts of the individuals and the entities and the governments who are taking that lead.
I think everybody was nodding head. Excellent idea, Rajesh. Indeed, thank you. And showing the leaders and appreciating them, that would go a long way. Absolutely agree with you. Thank you for this. Good hint. Yes. Checking my screen. There are no yellow hands.
Kuba, can we
Yes?
also? Sorry, I can't work out how this hand thing works, but can we also think proactively? Certainly, the messages I'm getting from vessels, not our own, but vessels from other players in the industry that are calling into jurisdictions which do allow for vaccine, is that there is a large proportion of the crew who don't want to be vaccinated. And equally, when you look at businesses, and that we're not always just focusing on the crew, we're looking at, as InterManager, we're looking at our businesses as well. When you look at your businesses and look at the vaccination rates, you've probably got just over 50% of people who want to be vaccinated against those who don't. And I think we need to think ahead at what the industry is going to look like in perhaps after the first quarter of 22, and that when most crew members and most companies will have had the opportunity of vaccination, how are we going to operate? Because we can't operate with 50% of our crew members not having been vaccinated. So we have to think, what is the message? The message is that we encourage crew to be vaccinated, not that you must vaccinate, we encourage, but we still have to operate a business without. And our charterers and the business community will have to accept that there will be vessels with perhaps a third of the crew on board who have not been and have the right to decide that. So how do we operate as a model going forward? Because we can't provide a pool of 1.7 million seafarers, all of whom are vaccinated. We're going to have processes in place, and I think InterManager needs to start using its voice on a platform now to educate the business world that you've got to accept testing. PCR tested crew is as good as or nearly as good as vaccinated crew, and they have a right not to be vaccinated. If we keep banging the vaccination drum, we're gonna cut out about 300,000 or 400,000 crew who just won't be vaccinated for all the right reasons as they see it. So maybe we still need to start thinking about that. It's not vaccination or bust. It's vaccination is the preferred, encouraged route, but there is also a world which doesn't require vaccination or shouldn't necessarily require vaccination. Just a thought.
And it makes sense, perfect sense to me, but I wonder what others, anybody on this one? Everybody happy? And okay, Mark, nobody wants to oppose you on this one. Therefore, I would say everybody's behind you on this one.
It's logic, isn't it? I mean, it's
a reality check, isn't it? That's what it is, by the look of it. Okay. Final word from you, Mark, then. Otherwise, I'm finishing.
No, I think on our sort of various other projects, our GDPR unofficial committee has got good traction, and they've submitted a report to you, Kuba. The purpose of that report, just so that we're clear, is that there are questions that all of us want to raise on GDPR that we don't want to show our company flags and go to the authorities ourselves, but InterManager can go on behalf of its members, keeping the members anonymous, and raise these questions legitimately, which won't risk repercussion. All of us try to comply as much as possible with GDPR, of course, but there are certain questions which in the GDPR regulations aren't geared towards managers and are inappropriate that we want answers on, so that we can moderate our actions or formulate our strategies accordingly. So that's good. What's been disappointing, I have to say, is our offer or Colombia's offer on sustainability and diversity, which I think Dirk informed me this morning has sort of aroused nul point on the Eurovision Song Contest basis of interest. I guess that's because everybody's got a great sustainability policy and a strategy and a great diversity strategy, but we're certainly here to provide a focal point on those where those two issues are central to our business strategy this year, and we're very happy to share. But it's up to you if you want to take advantage of that or not. And equally, if some of our members are embarking on other strategies of equal importance, perhaps they want to throw those into the pot officially or unofficially to myself or Kuba, and we can announce those as and those members as being the focal points for those strategies going forward. I think it is important. You know, we said this is our association. It's important that we share information on these kinds of things, and it's not doesn't give a competitive edge. It just raises the standard of the industry. So if you do have an interesting drive that you think would benefit the industry as a whole, please share that, and then we can all get involved. That's all I've got.
Indeed, thank you. And GDPR is indeed in my court now. I have sent messages to the governments highlighted and waiting for their response. Sometimes I got an automated message. Yes, we have received, and we'll respond to you as soon as possible. Okay, without further ado, thank you very much, everyone, for the attendance, and stand by when I send a new one for the 2 weeks' time. All the best. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Take care.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.